I do happen to have a yoga mat, but if you do not, fear not. Just find a place in your house that's carpeted, or maybe you've got a rug, not one that's slipping off the floor, but one that's solid on the ground, like the one that I'm standing on here in my living room. That's a great yoga mat for today. You'll be fine. I also have 2 yoga blocks. A great substitute that I've found is 2 thick books. I have a folded blanket, which is simply the throw blanket from my couch. You could do the same, or maybe you have a thick bath towel, a beach towel. And we'll start standing with our feet hip distance in the foundational pose for all poses. It's called Tadasana, but mountain pose. Our feet are parallel, hip distance. Notice one thing with me. Notice that if you turn your arms towards you, everything crumbles, and suddenly it looks like when we're on a computer. Am I right? Let's turn our palms away from each other, but let's feel that at our shoulder joint, and just notice. It organically uplifts our heart, which is not the same thing as jutting our chin up. Our chin floats parallel to the ground. And it's here that we stop so that we can start. We start to notice our breath and fully experience every inhale and every exhale. If you're able to breathe both the inhale and the exhale through your nose, that's ideal, but it's completely fine to breathe any way that you need to. I just want us to be aware. We'll start to add movement that's guided by our breath. There's actually a term in yoga for that, vinyasa. Don't worry, there's no quiz, but it's kind of cool to know. Inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky, a V shape. And then just exhale, float your arms along your sides, palms face out. That much one more time. Inhale, thumbs to the sky, a V. We exhale and float our arms along our sides. Now facing the short edge of your mat, or maybe the imaginary short edge of your mat, we'll start to build out sun salutation A together. So inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky, V. Exhale, hinge at your hips. For this first one, hands on top of your thighs. There's a hinge at your hips, not a rounding to fold, and we can emphasize that pressing our hands into our thighs. I'll turn sideways so it's apparent. There's a hinge at my hips. I'm not feeling like I'm rounding into my fold. So we will slide our hands down maybe, but we keep our length in our spine and keep the hinge at our hips. Then inhale, slide your hands back up. You could have your hands on your thighs the whole time or even return them there. And then come all the way up, V-shape, thumbs to the sky, a V, and we stand into our mountain. Inhale, V-shape. Exhale, hinge at your hips. Hands to your thighs or your shins or your ankles. Inhale, slide your hands up, uplift your heart. Exhale, hinge back in, take that length with you. And then inhale, rise, reach thumbs to the sky, a V. We pause in our mountain with our palms facing out. We'll keep building. Inhale, V-shape. Exhale, hinge, hands to thighs, shins, or ankles. Slide your hands up, inhale, bend your knees deeply, palms flat, step back, downward facing dog. Now our first down dog, a few things to note. We're not bending our elbows and crumbling our shoulders in. Remember how we just found that standing? Spin your inner upper arms away, push the ground away actively. Step your feet maybe even as wide as your mat for this first one and be on the balls of your feet. Find a hook in your tailbone. Let that lift your sit bones up like they're trying to get to that corner where the wall and ceiling meet. We push the ground away so much that we feel exquisite length in our back body, side body, front body. Then walk your feet forward, hip distance all the way up to your hands. Slide your hands up, inhale, lift your heart. Exhale, hinge at your hips, slide your hands back down, and then rise, reach, inhale, arms to the sky, thumbs to the sky. We pause with our palms facing out. Let's keep going, inhale, V. Exhale, hinge at your hips, hands to your thighs, or shins, or ankles. Glide your hands up, inhale, lengthen your heart. Bend your knees deeply enough that your hands get solid and flat. Push the ground away right away. Hook in our tailbone. We lift our hips up. You can keep your feet wide or make them maybe closer to hip distance. Keep pushing the ground away as you shift your shoulders over your wrists in a plank position. You'll need a lot of core strength to find the hook in your tailbone. Go back, hips to the sky, down dog. We do that much 2 more times, back and forth. We come into our plank, shoulders over wrists, and then we bring ourselves back into down dog. Our hook in our tailbone is our guide. And then one more time, shoulders over wrists. And once more, hips lift up and back. Walk your feet to your hands. Hip distance and parallel, slide your hands up, inhale, lift your heart. Exhale, slide your hands down as we fold and hinge. And then inhale, rise, reach thumbs to the sky, V. Pause with your palms facing out. Let's keep adding. Inhale, V. Exhale, hinge at your hips, hands to thighs, shins, or ankles. Glide your hands up, inhale, palms flat as we step carefully, pushing the ground away, finding the hook in our tailbone, down dog. Come to plank, shoulders over wrists, this time knees down. Our knees are further back in space than if we were on hands and knees. We don't want to collapse, so let's do that so we know what we don't want to do. Relax into your joints, and when you don't do that, push the ground away. Keep pushing the ground away as we lower all the way onto our bellies. Elbows brush our ribs. Once we're down, we'll make Sphinx pose happen by bringing our forearms parallel to the long edges of our mat. Press into the tops of your feet. Traction your elbows towards you. We glide our heart through the gateway of our arms. We want to take a little inventory. We're not trying to do this with our chin. That stays floating parallel to the ground. Lower down, place your hands next to your ribs, curl your toes under in all fours, so on all fours in one chunk, all fours, and then down dog. Lift your hips up and back, push the ground away. Walk forward, feet come to your hands, they're parallel in hip distance. Slide your hands up, inhale, lift your heart, slide your hands down, exhale, hinge back in. Then inhale, rise, reach, thumbs to the sky, a V, and we pause with our palms facing out. Let's flow. Inhale, V. Exhale, hinge at your hips, hands to thighs, shins, or ankles. Glide your hands up, inhale, bend your knees, palms flat, down dog. We push the ground away. We lift our sit bones to the sky, and then we come to plank, shoulders over wrists. We're pushing the ground away, and our knees come down like a kickstand. Keep pushing the ground away. Elbows brush our ribs as we lower to our bellies. Then we come into either cobra with our hands staying where they are, or sphinx like we all did a moment ago. Press into the tops of your feet. Keep that chin floating parallel to the ground. Lower down, curl your toes under in one piece. We come to all fours, and then the hook in our tailbone lifts us up and back into our downward facing dog. Walk your feet forward to your hands. We're hip distance and parallel. Slide your hands up, lift your heart, inhale. Slide your hands down, exhale as we fold, and then we rise, reach, thumbs to the sky, a V, and we pause with our palms facing out. Now, we need to rearrange our props, and we will be stepping wide and using the long edge as the front of our mat for our next little bit of fun. So place your blocks off the back, what will be now the back edge of your mat, the long edge, and within reach but not underfoot. So we don't want them upon our mat, just off the sides. The first bit is going to start with our feet parallel, facing that long edge. And we will bring our hands onto our hips. You can always wander over to a wall and use the wall for some balance. Tree pose, I'll turn so you can see me a little more easily. We shift our weight onto our left leg, take our right leg out in front of us, turn that right leg out. You can feel it in your hip joint. So you'll see it in your foot, but feel it in your hip joint, and then make a kickstand out of the ball of your right foot to the inside of your left arch. It could stay here and service what we've got that we're learning from it, no problem. You might place your right foot into the shin of your left leg. You might put your right foot into the inseam of your left leg. We don't want to let things collapse, so be tending to hugging that left hip in, and then Once we have deep roots, we can widen our branches into our tree pose. Breathing. While we're here breathing and balancing, notice what your right hip is doing, because in a moment we will translate this tree into a weight-bearing warrior. So we will transmute our tree into a warrior. It's a big fancy silly goose term. Now bring your hands onto your hips, turn your right knee forward, step down. Let's step wide. So if you happen to have turned away from the long edge, let's return to facing that long edge. And we turn our right leg out as if doing that tree pose again, and cheat our left heel at a 45-degree angle. We'll need to work on spacing, so bend that right knee and find a place, scoot it forward as far as it needs to go, where there's a vertical line from your right knee to your right ankle. Our back leg is not bent and forgotten. We're feeling that left thigh bone press into the hamstring, and then we just do our best not to let our hips swing out behind us, to hug it underneath us. And I pretend like I'm standing in mountain pose from the waist up. You'll see if you can find that. There's a tendency to pitch a little forward, lean a little bit back towards your left fingertips, and then let's get quiet here for 3 moments in our educated warrior pose. We'll straighten our front leg, lower our arms, and turn our toes to face the long edge of our mat so we can heel toe, heel toe. We're hip distance. I'm going to turn and face you a bit, but you don't need to do that. I just want you to be able to see what I'm up to. Standing now on our right leg with our hands on our hips and maybe our right hand on a wall. Left leg in front of us. We nerd out together because it's fun to be an anatomy nerd a little bit. Turn your left leg out and then place your left toes to the inside of your right foot. And this is enough, because all we're doing is learning a little bit of the recipe for Warrior 2, right? Then left foot could go on the right shin, or maybe you place your left foot into your right inner thigh. I wouldn't be in a big hurry to get to the thigh. Let's make sure we've got a nice solid trunk to our tree, and then we can grow our branches. And pause and breathe. And note that we have intel happening in our left hip that we get to bring with us when we become warriors. On our second side. And we bring our hands onto our hips, turn our left knee forward, step down, and then step wide. Arms out to the side. Turn your left leg out as if we were designing that tree all over again. Cheat your right heel at a 45-degree angle. Bend your left knee, check it out. Make sure vertical from left knee to left ankle. And then we're not letting that back knee collapse. We want to press, it's a feeling of the right thigh bone into the hamstring, but that doesn't send us hips behind us. We then hug that hip underneath. So there's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of complementary opposition, you might say. But you know what's the biggest complementary opposition? Our inhales and exhales, right? All right, let's get still. Let's breathe those opposite inhales and exhales into this new shape for 3 moments. Then we straighten our front leg, turn all toes to face the long edge of our mat. We turn now right leg out, so we'll stay wide for this next little stretch of things, and we sneak our left heel back at a 45-degree angle. With our arms out to the side, we don't side bend. Instead, we feel our left hip lift, and there's a hinge at our right hip. Reach way out with your right hand. See if you can find your block and place that on the outside of your right foot. That can be a thick book. You could use your shin, but I want you to make sure you're not placing your hand so heavily on your thigh that you slam that into hyperextension. So be light and be kind if for some reason you're using your hand on your thigh. And we take a few moments here with our arms outstretched and that feeling of inner upper arms spinning away from each other happening here. We'll keep the same shape but we'll bend our right knee. And that means that for me, I need a little bit more distance, so I scoot my left heel back. You might need to do the same. Side angle is like that warrior two, but now with our hand on our block, or you might do right forearm across your thigh. We stay a few moments where we are. And then we return to triangle, straightening our right leg. Now, many, maybe even most of us, will stay with our triangle pose. Some of us will take what's called half moon. And half moon means that we move our block about a foot out in front of our right pinky toe, and we can bring our left hand on our hip, and we just turn our triangle into a little flying triangle, standing it on our right leg. So if you'd like to do that, great. If you want to stay with triangle proper, you can stay with the triangle proper. And then all of us will step back, maybe with our left hand on our hip, into triangle once again. So with our block next to our right foot and our left arm up to the sky, then warrior two gets us out of it, but we need some housekeeping too. Bend your right knee. Take your block off the side of your mat, come up to warrior two, straighten your front leg, and then lower your arms. Let's turn the whole boat around. Left foot faces the short edge of our mat, right heel at a 45-degree angle, arms out to the side, not a side bend, a hinge, so our right hip lifts up. We reach way out with our left hand, then we find our block and place our hand on our block on the outside of our left foot. If you're using your shin or your hand on your leg in any way, you're soft and careful. We pause a few moments just like this. Bend your left knee. Slide your right heel back a little bit maybe, and now we're in side angle. So we assume the stance of our warrior two pose, but with the positioning of our arms that we just found in triangle. And it might be that you're doing left forearm across left thigh, and that's fine too. 3 moments here. Let it become triangle again by straightening carefully that left leg. Remember hinge, hip hinge? You could totally stay here the whole time. It's possible. Right hand on your hip, you move your block about a foot out in front of that left pinky toe, and now you're flying your triangle on just your left leg, and maybe you float that top arm to the sky. You don't have to take this part at all. You can stay in triangle. And then maybe right hand on your hip, and we step back into our triangle to meet our friends who are waiting there for us. Once again, when we come out of this, we take care of a bit of housekeeping, bending our left knee, moving our block off to the side, warrior two, and then we straighten, turn all toes to face the long edge. Heel toe, till we're hip distance. Now one block needs to be moved to the other side of our mat. So we were using the long edge as the front. We're now going to use the short edge as our front, and we want to position our 2 blocks on either side of us, again, not underfoot. And then we'll face the front of our mat. Inhale, V shape. Exhale, hinge at your hips, hands to thighs, shins, or ankles. Slide your hands up. Inhale. Hands to your mat. Step back to downward facing dog. Lift your right leg back behind you. Step that right foot forward. You might need to help it along. There's no shame in that. Frame your right foot with your blocks, and then keep your left hand on your block and spin your right arm open to the sky, a twisting crescent moment. We unravel our right hand onto our block and design a pyramid pose, which means we straighten our front leg and turn our back foot flat. Now, if straightening your front leg is rounding your spine, keep a little bend in that right knee, no problem. Heel toe your right foot to the right so there's some space side to side. If you had flashlights on your hip bones, they're both interested in facing that short edge of your mat. It's different than the triangle that we did earlier. And then we'll soak here in a straight-legged stretch, looking for as much length in our spine and hip hinge as we can bring to this situation. We keep our left hand on our block and right arm spins up to the sky here. 3 moments. We're trying not to swing that right hip out. Just think right hip interested in trying to go to the left. It won't really go there. Now unravel your hands to your blocks and spin on your back toes. Move your blocks about a foot out in front of you and lift that left leg. We're in a letter T position. You can bend your right knee as deeply as you'd like to. Firm your belly. There's actually quite a bit of core work going on here. Left hand stays on our block. Right arm floats up to the sky while we're here. Briefly. We unravel our right hand to our block. Both feet down onto our mat. Move your blocks off to the side. Take a chair pose, thumbs to the sky. Then we exhale, hands to our thighs as we hinge at our hips and we slide down as far as you like to go. Inhale, lift your heart, bend your knees. We're headed to down dog, palms flat, step it back. Once you step back, left leg lifts behind you and then we step it forward and we might need to help it along. We'll situate our blocks on either side of that left foot. And then right hand stays down and left arm floats up to the sky as we twist. We unravel and it becomes a pyramid pose. So straighten your front leg, hop your back foot flat on the ground. You can inch that left foot over to the left. Remember, we're emphasizing length in our spine and a hinge at our hip. And then we add our twist, right hand on our block and left arm spins open towards the sky. Lastly, left hand on your block, spin on your back toes, step up to a letter T. And once we float our letter T, we add a twist, right hand down, left arm up to the sky. We unravel our left hand onto our block, our right foot onto the ground. We'll move our blocks off to the side, place our hands on our shins, ankles, thighs, lift our heart, inhale. Hinge and fold as we exhale. Palms go flat, we step to down dog. From down dog, we shift it to plank, shoulders over wrists. Our knees come down and we lower all the way onto our bellies. Uncurl your toes, press the tops of your feet into your mat, and this time interlace your hands behind your back. Drag your knuckles back behind you. Remember, we're not doing this with our chin. Press into the tops of your feet. You might even lift your legs. If that hurts your low back, don't bother with that. And the other option is do Sphinx here instead, if that feels like a better fit. We have 3 moments, smiling our collarbones, lengthening through our spine. And then we'll lower down and roll over onto our backs. Once you're lying on your back, bend your knees, place your feet hip distance on your mat, and then cross your right ankle on top of your left thigh. This could be enough. You might take your right hand through the space and thread your needle. Sometimes I like to put my head and rest it on a folded blanket or a block here. We'll get quiet and still. "45 more seconds of quiet stillness in our reclining pigeon together. Then place both feet down on the ground and cross your left ankle on top of your right thigh. Maybe you thread the needle, left hand through the space. You hold your shin, you hold your hamstring. You might not even need the interlace. Feel free to toss a blanket underneath your head or slide a block or book beneath your head. And now a full minute of silence together, soaking here. And then we'll release this side, place our feet on the ground, scoot our hips to the right, let our knees drop to the left for a little twisting moment before we lay ourselves down in our final Shavasana meditation. We'll come through center, uncross our legs if you cross them, hips left, knees right, and a moment to pause. And then we come down the middle, lay ourselves out. You can keep your knees bent or straighten your legs, but this is our rest and digest. You can stay here in your Shavasana final meditation as long as you'd like. If it's time, let's wiggle our fingers and toes. Carefully bring our knees into our chest and roll to our side. We come up to any sort of comfortable seat, might be cross-legged or anything else, and then palms up or down, and we just take a second, grateful that we can do this together. I'm Andrea. Thank you so much for practicing with me. I look forward to us doing this again together soon.